Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch III, coming to you live from the palatial studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Irvine, California. Joining me as per the usual, no, not as per usual. These are my new guests. Sorry, I did the show from the office today instead of the home studios, and so I forgot where I was for a second. It's been a really busy day. But joining me from a more than acceptable safe social distance through the miracle of telephony are my guests for this evening. We have Glenda Benevides and George Bentley. How are you two doing?
Fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you.
They are coming from different locations. They are not ganging up on me collectively.
Yeah.
I'm from Northern California, so
Northern California, so the same time zone.
Yes.
And George, where are you calling in from?
Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado, a
Denver.
beautiful city.
Oh yeah.
Northern California is also quite beautiful, but you have a lot of fog.
The Mile High City.
Yes, the Mile High City has its own claims to fame, including a giant park that's built on a cemetery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Holy Bill.
All right.
Yep. Hey, I know all sorts of weird things. But anyway, let's see. Glenda, you are a musical type, if I understood your press release correctly.
Yes.
That's awesome, because Not Quite After Midnight actually started out as a musical interviewing show. And
Really?
I belong to a networking group called Music Network One, and I was doing other podcasts at the time, and I thought that was a resource that I shouldn't be putting aside, and so I started interviewing musicians, and then it kind of grew
Nice.
from there.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that. There's it's interesting because we really need a voice. A lot of us out here, especially independent artists. And this year, I'm really quite fortunate. I jumped in with this year with the Recording Academy, so I'm now a voting member with the Recording Academy. So
Yeah, I saw that.
be seen,
That's
It's
really
really
cool.
cool. So what kind of music, Glenda?
That's such a great question, because these days, there are genres, but there's also a lot of hybrid. Like, I'm going to use the word hybrid because there's a lot of mixing into music. So my background has been mostly R&B, and I've expanded into what they call roots. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this new category this year.
Yeah,
in the Recording
I have
Academy.
heard of roots music.
So it's an interesting genre. It could be anything from country to Western. No, I'm joking. It could be anything from country to like ethnic, anything Americana, but not Americana. It's very strange, but it's got a lot of things. But mine's kind of a hybrid. R&B, soul, that type of leaning.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of room for innovation and new things. A friend of mine, his original music is what he calls angelic rock opera.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Wow.
His band's named Aladdin. It's his last name, with one L and two D's. So
I love it.
Yeah. But yeah, he gets most of his work though from being the lead singer of a Queen tribute band called the Kings of Queen. And
wow.
Yeah. They
He must be a fabulous singer.
They put a lot of work into it. He's really good. He said it's harder to be Freddie Mercury than it is to be himself. So
right.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
But yeah. So, but yeah, he makes a good living.
Cool.
Yeah, that I think I'm familiar. I have a friend that's in a Led Zeppelin tribute band,
Okay.
and yeah, they can. You got the right gig, you can make anything up to 10,000 and up for
Oh
the
yeah,
evening.
yeah, for
Oh
sure,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, they got
I just wish I.
he's got promoters bringing him in all over the country. I think
Yeah.
what is it next month? Next month he's getting flown out to New York with his band
Wow.
to play out there. Yeah,
Yeah.
and they just got
There
back from
was
Amazing.
Tennessee and
just in
Georgia.
Denver a few months back, a Queen cover band. I wonder if it was them.
Might be. I don't remember if they've played Denver or not.
Trying to, it was like a night with Queen or something like that. I
Okay.
can't
Oh, nice.
remember. I got tickets, but then we had a conflict, so
Uh-oh.
I gave them away. But it was cool.
Yeah, a good tribute band, especially when the band's missing a
Yeah.
member permanently, like Queen or Led Zeppelin or well, I could name any number of the Who. Uh, is if they're good enough, then it can really be something to
Yeah.
watch. But
I have a nephew. My wife's from Chile, and we have a house down there. But and that whole side of the family is very, very musical. They're all musicians. But uh, our nephew actually has a police cover band
okay,
in Chile. So
interesting.
Nice.
very popular. So
Nice.
I just find that very interesting.
Well, I guess there's music all over the world, and some bands reached all over the place. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And so, George, you help people with aging in place. I saw on your promo piece.
Yeah, I do. I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I just kind of ran into this with my family
Okay.
and got passionate about it. But I believe you, me, we're all going to live to be 95, 100,
Oh yeah.
maybe older. And the only question is how healthy and vibrant are we going to be? How happy are we going to be between here and there? And how much health care are we going to consume? So if we get proactive, and by the way, live music, I think, is amazing medicine for anything. That music and comedy, I'm just a big proponent of that, and I encourage people to start thinking about planning the rest of our life, and I can do things today that help me be happier and healthier.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where live local music is a big part of that. We go out at least one night a week and watch a live local band or performer, whatever it is, just to be supportive. And we do the same thing with comedy. We at least once a week we go out and try to see some comedy, and it's just.
Yeah, I think you're really speaking to something there. I mean, that's really key, for all of us, especially with the, whole lockdown and everything like that, and then but just getting ourselves back out and connecting with people, that brings vibrancy and life, into people, and dancing and music. So key to health. I totally get it, George. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that you're doing that, like you're doing that, and you're a proponent of that. That's
Right. And I
yeah.
try to do it. I try. I'm not a great musician, but I love playing music. I love playing guitar and singing, and my wife, she plays the ukulele, and
Oh, nice.
we spend a lot of time. It's just for us, right?
That's
Right.
awesome.
But it's very it just energizes, and it's fun. And
Yeah.
you don't have to be good to enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm proof of that.
It's just not your profession. That's fine.
It's an avocation.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my grandmother who lived to the age of 93. I think she kept her vibrancy by planning things.
Yeah.
She would make all sorts of plans of things to do and places to go, and she'd get up and go and do them. And I think she went a little too far though, because she was always thinking about the next thing. So she was often missing the thing that was happening right in front of her.
Uh,
But
Uh,
yeah, she did cruises and trips with my aunt and uncle and all nature of things like that. Was involved in her community and her assisted living complex and
yeah.
you know, all that kind of stuff. And even after my grandfather passed, and you know, she I used to tease and joke around that she was the mayor of her assisted living facility, because she'd always, whenever she'd go into the dining room, she'd always make the rounds, glad handing everybody, and you know, like she was a politician.
yeah.
You
Well,
gotta love it.
tell this joke. My dad made it to 102,
Wow.
and
Wow.
mom died when she was 83, and my mom was healthy as a horse. My dad was the one who was really sick,
Mm.
Oh my
but
goodness.
my mom injured herself. She fell in the bathtub and broke her
Oh
hip,
wow.
and
Hmm.
that set up this downward spiral. We lost control, and it wasn't the broken hip that killed her. It was all of the iatrogenic conditions, these you know, adverse drug reactions,
Right.
infection in the hospital, all these other
Mm,
things started
mm,
happening to her that I don't think would have happened had she not had that
Yeah.
injury. Um, and then when she's gone, my dad was not healthy. She dies in a nursing home, and my dad's like, "I'll never go into a nursing home."
mm.
And you need to help me figure out how to make that happen. And, you know, and I'm like, Dad, I got it. So I started trying to help him. And the bottom line was, that's where this started for me, is I'm saying, Dad,
Wow.
just, we need to do simple things every day, you know, just some simple thing every day to help you stay healthier and happier. And I, you know, ran into these technologies, walk-in tubs and stuff like that. They're being sold like aluminum siding, and they still are today, but it's a huge potential benefit for anybody, you know, as we
Yeah.
age. But I was able to help my dad figure out how to do natural therapies. And where I'm headed with this, there's actually a connection. Okay, just hang with me a second. But he started doing these therapies. He started feeling better. He started walking. He started moving. And
Mm,
my parents were both always, you know, this is our home. We're gonna live and die here. You know, we're never going anywhere else. And that was his mission. And then all of a sudden, after about a year and a half of that, he's feeling way better. And all of a sudden, he's like, I'm bored. You know,
wow.
I live here by myself. You know, I'm a block away from my church, but you know, all of my friends are dying off and moving and whatever. And this was when he was in his late 80s. And I said, Dad, it's time to make a change, right? And he goes, oh no, I'm staying here. But I finally got him to take a look at an active senior community. And my dad lived independently every day of his life, all the way to 102,
Really?
had his own place. But when he got there, and this is the segue back to the point, when my dad got into this community, men are like, a man alive in his 90s compared to the women
Uh-huh.
is like he's, you know, a unicorn.
Rooster in the in the hen house.
He was a stud, man. He was they just loved him, man. He couldn't keep him off of him. And it's funny because I went to visit him and they were playing bingo. And there was an empty table, and each one of these tables will seat like 8 people. And every time he'd walk into this large dining room, you could see it's like whack-a-mole. You could see the ladies' heads popping up around the room. They go, "Oh, Earl's here," and he asked me to get a cup of coffee, and I said, "Okay." And we were going to sit at this table, and I turned around, and the table was completely full. There were
Oh my
7 women
God.
and my dad sitting at his
That's
table.
awesome.
And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And I went up and I said to the lady sitting next to my dad, so this is my dad. I'm George. I'm visiting my dad. Do you mind if I sit next to him to play bingo? And she's like, this is my seat.
Oh
I
my
was like, oh,
God.
okay. All right. Finally, one of the ladies on the other side of the table said, here, you can have my seat.
Oh my
But
goodness.
it really was fun because those relationships, you know, and being active and you know, if I were doing a longevity strategy with was it your mom or your grandma, Bill, that you
My
said
grandmother.
planned everything out in the future?
Yeah, it was my grandmother, my grandma
Your grandma.
Patty.
The only thing I would say, that's all great, but the idea of every day, and I do this, and my dad and I made this pact every day before I get out of bed. I say, this is going to be the best day of my life.
Yep.
And today was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Think about it. All we have is today. And if
Yeah.
your grandma had just carried that thought with her while she's planning off in the future, she's still embracing,
Right.
what she's created for herself in that particular day.
Yeah.
It takes, because we never know,
No.
right? We never know when we're going to take our last breath. And it's the idea is just figure out how we can be happy as we go through this journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
That ties back to music, because I
Yeah.
think music is a natural way for us to experience pleasure and joy.
Yeah. It's huge. That's huge. Being present
Yeah.
today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I do with my life, in addition to podcasting, I help people with their insurance planning. I specialize in smaller specified purpose policies, so like long-term care or final expense, that kind of thing. And
That's really important,
yeah,
Bill.
no,
I mean,
it really is.
really.
Yeah, and I'm working on getting to do that so that people don't have to make the choice between between staying in their home and being in the best place for themselves. My grandmother, my grandparents, those grandparents had long-term care insurance since the 1980s. And when it came time for them to when they finally decided it was time for them to leave the house, everything was paid for. And and out here in Southern California, long-term assisted living and those kinds of programs are just ridiculously expensive,
Ridiculous.
thousands a month. And
Everything's ridiculous here.
yeah,
Don't get me started.
yeah, it's insane.
Oh,
But
well,
yeah, that's why it's
part
so
of
necessary to get a good policy for long-term care. And I'm
Yeah.
working on doing that right now. But yeah, and because going into assisted living or active seniors is a lot different than going into a nursing home. That's for sure.
oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and
I'm not anti-nursing
oh
home.
no,
I've
it has
had
its
people in the
purpose.
past think I'm anti-nursing home, and I'm not. And people think I'm anti-doctor, and I'm not,
Right.
because it's just that we consume these, for example, our reliance on prescription medications and the way we run Western medicine is not always in our best
Right.
interest. And I encourage people to, I say I'm a curious George, and the only reason I know what I know is I've learned to ask questions. And I encourage people to always ask why. Why are you prescribing this for me? And
Yep.
why
Right.
is there
Yep.
not another
Absolutely.
alternative? Or what are my options? And
Mhm.
and the same thing with like making our homes safe.
Mhm.
Our homes are really our castle. We have more baby boomers. I'm 70 years old. We have more baby boomers and seniors dying from bathroom related falls
Mhm.
than
Mm.
are dying from automobile accidents,
I can believe it.
by a
Yeah.
multiple of 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why? I mean, we've made cars so safe that the fatality rate is just
Mhm.
plummeting. It's dropping.
Yeah.
But parts of our home, and in particular the bathroom and stairs, are just, they haven't been changed in thousands of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And Bob Saget was not a fluke.
No.
This happens to millions of people, but that's where being proactive and thinking about, how do I make myself happy? How do I make myself safe? Means that sometimes I need to make some adjustments.
Mhm.
And we can make a home safe for a fraction of the cost of going into one of these
Oh yeah,
facilities.
for sure.
Certainly not more expensive. I mean, it
Absolutely.
depends on the home and what
Yeah.
has to be done. But generally speaking, there's an ROI of less than a year, and you can now stay in your home, hopefully for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And if you leave because you want to.
Right.
If
Mhm.
you leave because you're like my dad, and my dad wanted to move somewhere else for him,
Right.
to make him happier.
Mhm.
And that's the reason you should be making these moves, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully not because I can't take care of myself.
Right. Well,
I need somebody to care for me, all that. We really want to be
so
trying to
much
maintain our
so
independence.
much of so much of the horrors of aging can be taken care of with preparation, getting a jump on things. You
Yeah.
don't so many people end up in a bad nursing home experience because they wait until they're past the point of no return, and they haven't prepared for it. They don't have savings set up, they don't have insurance set up, they don't have whatever it is to get them into a better place. Or they haven't thought of things like getting an upgraded bath, or one of those chair lifts things for the stairs. And it's like both sets of grandparents had pre-planning set up with their situations, knowing that eventually things would get to the point that they would need help. And we're going to need this in 5 years, so let's go ahead and get ready for that. We're going to need this in 20 years, so we'll get ready for that. And they all were perfectly happy and healthy. If my grandparents hadn't had their if my dad's parents hadn't had their long-term care insurance, they probably would have waited so long to go into a facility that my grandfather would have passed away and my grandmother would have gone blind before moving into a new place. But as it
Right.
was, my grandmother still had her sight and my grandfather was still alive. They moved to a new place, made plenty of friends, got familiar with the area. And then my grandfather passed away, so my grandmother had support from friends, and my aunt and uncle were lived like within 2 miles of the facility. And then when she went blind, she didn't need to see to find her way around the place. She knew how many steps it took to get from her and turns to get from her apartment to the elevator to the dining room, and shake all those hands. And she knew where everybody was sitting. You know,
That's really cool.
yeah,
Well, it's about being
yeah,
proactive, and unfortunately, a lot of people, and I can't say all, but a vast majority of
yeah.
people wait till something happens.
Hmm.
And I talk in one of my books in my seminars that two of the biggest killers of baby boomers and seniors are denial
Hmm.
and ignorance.
Yeah.
And if we're in denial, you know, I, I see all this anti-aging stuff, and I'm like, what's going on here? How can you be anti-aging? How can you be against aging? Every day I live, I get a day older. And the thought is to be pro-aging,
Yeah.
meaning, hey, this is a reality. I can do things to manage it, and I can be proactive.
Yep.
And if I am, I actually can influence my quality of life and my longevity.
Yeah.
If I don't, I'm just basically leaving it to chance. And something, a fall, an injury, an illness, something happens, and then we're forced into action.
Yeah.
So being proactive is really key.
Yeah. Proactive over reactive, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, and I like the Viktor Frankl. He wrote that the one thing that separates the human species from all other animals on the planet is that we're the only ones. There's stimulus and response, right?
Mhm.
Stimulus and response. That's how our brain was evolved, and we're the only creatures that can look at that gap between stimulus and response and decide how we're going to react.
Right.
And it's in that gap that we make either good decisions or bad decisions. So the idea is we really can be proactive. We just need to stop and think about it,
Yeah.
and realize that we really do have control to some extent and influence over our life as we age.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know I'm not getting any younger. I'm not. I'm only just 50. So so
You're
not that
80.
old, but I'm not getting younger. That's for sure.
Now, there's so much technology coming into existence that, I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. We really are there. We're already starting to document that we can reverse aging.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done any reading or heard about this, but it won't be long. We're 2 or 3 years away from. There's a substance called NMN. I cannot tell you what the medical term is
Okay.
for it, but you can actually get it. But it's been proven to reverse the aging process and slow it down. And right now the FDA's in the process of reviewing this, but you can get it as a supplement on Amazon or whatever. I don't know how good the quality is, but there's just all kinds of stuff like this that is in the wings and on the way, and we just need to be aware of them and
Oh yeah.
take advantage.
I've heard it said that the first person to live to 150 years old is alive today. They don't know how old
Well,
that person is, but they're alive.
well, I think that's true. I think that's true. Now, I know that there are people walking on the face of the earth right now who are convinced that we can live to 300, 400 years. And, I don't know. I can't argue that. I know we can live to 122 because Jean Clement lived to be 122. Yeah. So how long are we biologically and genetically engineered to live as biological vehicles? And I'm suggesting we don't really know. Yeah. We do things that cause us to die. I mean, it used to be we got ate by saber-toothed tigers, or we froze to death, or we starved, whatever.
Got a paper
but we've
cut
evolved to manage our environment where, and we've got the longest life expectancy we've had, and every generation, the successive generation after it has had a longer life expectancy until now.
Yeah.
And the only reason that is because of what we're doing to our bodies, the negative things we're doing, the poor nutrition, the pharmaceuticals, the injuries, all that stuff.
Yeah. I know. I'm all that stuff. I've definitely got the stuff that I'm feeding into my body.
Me too.
Yeah.
But it's a choice.
Yeah.
And you can make that choice.
It's a poor choice.
And, alcohol. I drink. Yeah. Alcohol's not good. That doesn't really help our body. It's not good for your brain, that's for sure. It's not good for your liver. But you make a choice, and I don't fall down drunk every night or anything. But I like wine, and it's in moderation.
Yep.
Jean Clement, the lady that lived to 122. Is kind of my child about, first of all, humor and enjoying life. She outlived 5 husbands, no divorces. She outlived all of them. They all died. And she rode a bicycle until she was 92 years old. She smoked cigarettes until she was 98, and she quit smoking because she said the men didn't like the smell of smoke on her, so she stopped smoking. She ate a chocolate bar every day and drank a half a pint of whiskey every day.
Wow.
Like, okay. But she had a sense of humor, and at her 120th birthday, one of these reporters asked her, what's your secret? And she said, well, I don't know what my secret is, but I haven't had but one wrinkle in my entire life. And the guy was, what, really? And she goes, yeah, and I'm sitting on it. Do you want to see it? And I'm like, okay, maybe that's why she lived so long. She was funny.
Yeah, I'm sure things like sense of humor and attitude in general probably have a lot to do with it.
Yep.
But yeah, being the grumpy old man doesn't keep you alive.
No, it doesn't. Doesn't make you fun to be around either.
No, that's for sure.
So, Glenda, is your music, what you were saying, is called root music? What you do?
Yeah, it's a hybrid. So it's kind of a combination of R&B and what they consider roots now. It's more like American style of music. Yeah.
So where would something like would bluegrass fit into that, or?
Well, yeah, there's, like I said, the category is fairly large. So they have Americana, they have bluegrass, they have country, they have all kinds of stuff inside of that category. It could be African too. So um yeah, I think I do music of the heart. So that's that's how I want to categorize it.
Well, what does
Yeah.
that mean? That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you have to listen to it. I tell stories, and stories that really make a difference, and hopefully it uplifts and enlightens and brings your heart up. That's
Yeah.
really what.
Where can people listen to your music?
It's pretty much on my website, or you can go to Bandcamp. My website is glendabenevides.com. Hard to spell that last name, Benevides.com. So you can do that. Bandcamp. I'm Glenda Benevides everywhere. So you can when you get online, just go Glenda Benevides and you'll find everything. You'll find my website, my YouTube channel, where I do interviews with a variety of people that are inspirational. I do music interviews. I also do a variety of global badass goddess interviews, which we talk about what it means to be a goddess. What does it mean to be a badass? I coined it as just being beautiful. I took an acronym, right? So badass would be beautiful, accessible, daring, abundant, savvy, and sassy. So that's my idea of
Like that.
badass. I wanted to change that because it just kind of started to get a bad. "Ooh, I'm gonna go kick your ass." It's like, no, 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 it's not that. So
Right.
yeah, and I wrote a book called Courage and Find Your Fire and Ignite find find your fire and ignite action in your life. It's a handbook, and it really supports people to they can see my journey of trials and triumphs, and then I give like little workbook stuff to do to like help you get clarity, courage, confidence, and commitment. So
Cool.
that's one of the things that I've done, and I'm getting ready to tour Scotland this summer and recording. Got like music videos up now. My newest one is Lulu White, and
Yeah, I saw
uh,
that in the description, and I was kind of curious about that.
yeah, Lulu. She's kind of an interesting woman. I was doing some research, and I thought, I'm looking for really powerful women that really made a difference. And I came upon her because nobody was talking about her. There was other women in New Orleans they were talking about, and she's what I loved about her was that she was from the 1800s,
Okay.
late 1800s, and she had a very successful business. It was a brothel, and she was the richest woman in New Orleans until about 1917.
I can believe it.
And I just thought that was extraordinary because in that time period for women, there wasn't a lot of choice to be independent or make money or that type of thing. And sure, it was a brothel, but man, she made it work. She had some killer branding, I'm telling you. Um, she called herself an octoroon, and it was an octoroon palace in Mahogany Hall.
Okay.
And she'd have people come from all over to be with her ladies, and they'd have music. And matter of fact, Louis Armstrong played there when he was
Okay.
early in his career. And yeah, she was just a pretty special woman. And I thought, I'm going to tell her story. um, that you, in the face of nothing, in the face of everything against you,
Mhm.
you can actually make something happen, and as a woman. And I think that was the inspiring story I really wanted to tell about Lulu. um and yeah, that ladies today, there's no reason why you can't express yourself or share what you have to offer. So
Or make a difference in the world.
absolutely. That's what I mean by share what you have to offer. It could be You could be painting, you could be, a nurse, you could be anything, and you could still share share yourself.
Well,
Yep. Yep.
that's one of the keys to longevity, is to be giving and growing and contributing.
Absolutely.
That's one of the secrets. Once we stop, if you're not growing, you're dying. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true with anything. And
It's true.
if you're not really giving, you'll be extinct.
Yeah, exactly. And it was funny. I was just talking about that with my music partner today. It's like, open your mind. Like, why not? And especially as you get older, seeing this is what I do. Oh, I can't do that technology stuff. It's easy to go there, and slowly you can, then you'll know what's going on. You can stay current. You can stay prevalent. I mean, right
relevant.
now, relevant. There we go. And prevalent.
And prevalent.
And prevalent. You know what I'm saying? I think that's really true. I heard this quote. It's kind of what you talk about, George, about when the lady Jean, that you're talking about at 100 and, what'd you say, 122?
122.
Yeah. Somebody asked centenarians, I think this was in an article I was reading, they asked a bunch of centenarians, what kept them alive and well. And they said, you ready for this? They go, they don't hang out with old people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yep.
So,
So,
like, Bob Proctor was one of my mentors, and he used to always say,
Bob Proctor.
I hang out with young people because I am one,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how I act. And my dad always, my dad was, 100, 101, 102, but he acted like a 17-year-old. And he had so much in common with my kids, it was scary. I say, man, these kids and over there, they're kind of alike, they take naps whenever they want to. They're pretty grumpy sometimes, they don't practice safe sex. I mean, it's like, well, they have a lot in common,
I love it.
So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
that is a big part of it,
Yeah, that's really awesome.
And it doesn't have to be hard, over 60% of people in nursing homes, for example, don't have anybody to visit them.
I know. That's just.
If somebody's sitting around, well, I really don't have anything to do, or why not just reach out and help somebody else? It doesn't have to be a big deal. I saw, I don't know who posted, but I saw a little, I think it was on LinkedIn or somewhere, but this nurse posted an image of a patient laying in the bed, sleeping, with a pigeon sitting on his hip, right on top of him. And she said, this guy's been in the hospital for 23 days and nobody has ever visited him. And this pigeon, every other day or so, this pigeon will fly through the window and sit on this guy.
Wow.
Sit there for a while, and then he'll fly off.
Wow.
And she thought, that's really weird. And then she finally found out that this guy used to go down to a park right near the hospital and feed the pigeons every day.
Wow.
And she's sitting there going, oh, wonder if that pigeon, recognized him, is it, here we got birds that are giving,
It was his friend.
It was really, I thought that's really cool, the birds give it back,
I love it. And here's like words of, inspiration here. It's like, if each one of us, whatever age you're at, if each one of us would pick something, like, go do Meals on Wheels, go visit someone in hospice or whatever, just 2 hours out of your day, you would feel better, they would feel better, and you might learn something, instead of sitting around going, I'm bored, I need to watch TV, or I'm going to check out, or I'm going to do this. It's like that. It's like, no, get out of yourself, get beyond yourself.
And just think of the limitless ways that we can contribute to other people. It doesn't have to cost a dime.
Exactly.
I started this, kind of became a movement. after I got out of law school, I went back, worked for a federal judge in Arkansas, and I'm originally from Arkansas, and the literacy rate was pretty low, and
Yeah.
so I started this program, Lawyers for Literacy, and
Love
it's
it.
amazing. These folks, we just go meet with somebody, and one night a week for an hour, and just help them learn to read, and it's
Yeah.
literally life altering for those people. you know?
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't
And
have to
we
be
take, and
complicated.
it's crazy, George. We take that for granted because, I mean, 300-400 years ago, a lot of people didn't read. Matter of fact, when I was in London, I was walking through the streets and I saw these like plaques on the ground. Like had a picture. They were old. They're like 1800s probably, and they were beautiful. And I was like, "What? Why is there like little symbols of people?" And the guy that was taking the tour, he said, "Oh, because people weren't literate, so they had to know what that house was. So they looked down and see the plaque that showed them the picture."
Wow.
And it's like, look, we should be grateful that we have the opportunity to learn these things, you
Yeah.
know, and they didn't teach necessarily women, for sure. It's like,
Right. You don't need to read.
no, you don't need to read. You got to cook. You got to do,
Look at all the trouble that evolved because women learned to read. I mean,
You're welcome.
life would be a lot simpler. No,
You're welcome.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yeah, it's true. It's very true. And
Yeah.
it helps the giver. I mean, I think that's, and I like the idea that, forgiveness is forgiving. It's not for the
That's
other
right.
person, you know.
That's right.
I carry anger or frustration or loneliness around. That's what's eating me up.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
I've got somebody who's upset. I've got one of my children is upset with me right now, and I'm like, wow, how do I help you get past this?
Right.
So
Right.
you can just see it, just eating him up, and
Yeah.
I'm like, let's talk about this, but
Yeah.
it's not easy.
No, it's not. It's complicated, actually. We're all very unique, complicated people, even though we're all very connected, you know, and very similar in many ways. So,
Right.
yeah, wow, it
Which
is,
which does
yeah,
being similar can lead to conflict.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's not always because you disagree.
yeah,
Maybe
right,
it is complicated. But it's very interesting.
yeah, for sure. There's so
So,
much to learn from each other
yep.
if we're just curious enough. And I think a lot of times people stop being curious. You know, they're worried about themselves, or they're worried about what they look like, or they're worried about this, or they're worried about that, stressed about this. It's like, you know what? Just get yourself to a place and be curious about somebody else. You don't know who's walking down your street. They could be a physicist, or they could be this amazing, bright, shining star, even though they do your lawn. You know what I mean?
All
You know
right.
what I mean? There's so many judgments and prejudices that we
Yep.
have that keep us from each other, and which I believe ties into health, like you were talking about. It's like there's so much that's just it's delicious, actually. We
Right.
just take the time,
Well,
yeah, and ask the question.
A lot of it's prejudice.
mhm.
Yeah,
We prejudge people.
yeah,
Somebody is whatever mowing my lawn, and so I make up my mind that they're obviously not intelligent, or they don't have a lot of drive, or whatever it is. And man, that can be way wrong.
Yeah.
A
yes,
lot of people do what
absolutely.
they do for a lot of different reasons, and it doesn't mean they don't have beauty and talent and things to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, and I like to try to meet one new person a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just
Yeah.
That's a
one new
great goal.
person a week, and sometimes it's somebody in the grocery store.
Yeah,
Whatever. It doesn't
yeah,
really matter. If I got an excuse to start a short conversation,
hmm,
I take advantage of it, and that has really been a fun thing for me. It's not like I've created a bunch of close friends out of it, but I can always tell that it was a positive thing for that other person, to have
yeah,
somebody pay attention to them, and ask about them. You know,
Yeah.
tell me about yourself. You know, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
what?
Well,
Yeah, I can't
putting
remember what he
putting
had.
the
Oh,
putting the focus outside of oneself is just healthy in general. You know, when you have the focus facing inward, it creates all sorts of unsettled feelings and
Mm.
tension and depression and all of that stuff. But if you can put the focus outside of yourself to others,
Mm-hmm.
whether
Yeah.
it's something as simple as saying hi to somebody at the grocery store, or it's going down to the soup kitchen and volunteering for a while, or something else entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting the focus outside of yourself is one of the healthiest things I think you can do.
Yeah. It's like letting yourself be creative.
Hmm.
You know what I mean, too? Like really letting yourself be creative and go, well, not only like when you come to the day of like, how do I serve today? How do I what can I do to make somebody smile or like meet one person? Like you said, I mean, I know how I felt when I like you're just walking through the store like being a drone, I'm like, why am I being a drone? Smile, like connect with somebody, and then somebody opens the door for me. And it's just like, that is such a delight. Thank you. That was really kind that they stopped for a minute to like, be present to kind, and things like that, and it makes a difference and it just makes you feel good, like, oh, that was lovely, and I always make the comment like, thank you for being a gentleman, or thank you so much for taking the time, things like that, I mean, I've heard horror stories about that. I'm like, oh god.
well, well,
Someone is like,
I believe that it's our job to be happy, to figure out as a member of this species,
mm,
how do I stay happy? And just think about it. If you're happy, who who are you going to be around? You're going to be around other happy people, right?
yeah,
And you're going to try to spread and create that happiness. Now that is easy to say, be
yeah,
happy, and I think it's different for everybody.
sure,
The bottom line is, if I can figure that out, then I do feel good about myself, and I
yeah,
do want to share. And it's not a selfish thing, and
no,
I
no,
agree with what Bill was saying, but it's how do I give more? I give more when I feel good, when I'm happy, when I'm up.
absolutely,
It's easier for me to make somebody laugh when I'm in a good mood than if, you know, I'm just in a
yeah,
miserable state,
yeah,
and so
yeah, it's
that's it.
I,
And that's
I
how we
think
save our species.
I
I think
agree.
we're,
And I think the word to me is self-full, not
say it again.
selfish. Self-full, not
Yes,
selfish. You
yes,
know,
yes.
that's narcissistic and vapid. So self-full is like you said, you're making, it's like they say on the airlines, please put your mask on yourself first, then your child. And I remember thinking, oh my God, why would you do, um, and it makes sense because if you're not taking care of you and breathing, you're not going to help anybody else.
Yep, that's right.
So,
It's like the word
Yeah.
soulful. I should be in touch with my soul and my spirit, whatever that is, whatever you think or believe. But, you know, we,
yeah.
we drive this biological vehicle, but
Yep.
I'm the one in it, right? I'm the one,
Yep.
has the internal dialogue, and, that's me,
That's
right?
right.
And so I should embrace that and do the
Yeah.
best I can to stay in touch with that,
That's
so that
right.
I'm capable of sharing that with
That's
other
right.
people
Yeah.
and helping them.
Well,
That's right.
self care is very important, and has been recognized for a long time. I mean,
Hmm.
the Bible says the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
There you
Hmm.
go.
So that implies
Absolutely.
your first job is to love yourself.
Yeah.
Bingo.
100%.
You have to learn how to
Oh,
do that
where'd
to
that
learn how to
come
love
from? I'm
others.
kidding. I want that book. What is that book? I'm being silly. But that is absolutely right. I think
Yeah.
that is absolutely right. And if you
Yeah.
think about it, okay, so all the divisiveness, I mean, the political stuff, I mean, I'm just telling you, I'm tired of it. I don't
Totally.
care what letter a politician puts after their name. I don't like them. I don't like professional politicians,
Yeah.
but there's a whole lot of divisiveness in our society right now. The
Yeah.
politicians are the ones that are stirring the pot and, moving it one way or the other. But if you stop and think about it, why does somebody think the way they think? If I run into somebody and they're a white supremacist or whatever it is, it doesn't make any difference to me. It's easy for me to, on principle, just say, I reject that. I don't agree with that. But I'm like, what? Why do you say that? Why do you think that way? Where
Yeah,
did
exactly.
you learn that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
To help them think deeply, because we're just a bunch of beliefs and patterns.
Well, I tell this story. My grandfather was a racist, in the South, or rural Arkansas, whatever, and KKK, all that kind of a bad guy. And my dad never told me any stories about my grandfather, never. And the only story he ever told me, and I was a grown adult and had children before he shared this with me, but my grandfather had a butcher shop in the small town that I was raised in. And one day, the black man who picks up all the garbage and cleans up behind the shops and stuff parked his wagon behind my grandfather's shop, and my father was working there. He was about 6 years old, sweeping the floor, whatever. And my grandfather says, "You go out there and tell that black man, right?
We know what he said.
Move his wagon right now, right?" And my dad's okay, and he goes out, "Mr. Jones, would you please move your wagon? It's blocking my my dad's, and he goes, "Sure," and he moves. My dad walks back in the shop, and my grandfather grabs him by the neck, slams him up against the wall, and says, "If I ever hear you call a black man Mister again, I will beat you."
Wow.
And in that moment, my dad, I mean, what choices as human beings do we have, 6 years old, whatever, when we experience something? Oh, I'm supposed to be angry. Oh, I'm supposed to be violent. Oh, I'm supposed to be racist. He had all these choices. And he told me in that very second, I said to myself, I don't want to be like that.
Wow.
I don't want to be like that man.
Wow.
And he wasn't, and I just, oh my God, but a lot of people don't make that decision. A lot of people, oh, this is the way I'm supposed to think. And
it reminds me, of the story, my guest a couple of shows ago, CJ Hudson, said his book was about how he broke the cycle of domestic violence in his family that had gone back like 3 generations. And he said, just as a kid, he saw his dad beating his mom near to death, and came to realize that that's not right.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it takes somebody to make a decision to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does.
And that takes courage.
Yeah, sure does.
And the ones that are weak don't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just, if I just follow whatever, anything, I don't care what it is. It's the same thing with medicine. If I just, my doctor says to me, we're going to do this procedure, or you're going to, if I don't have the courage to say,
hey,
why,
why exactly?
Let me understand,
Yeah.
help me so I can make an informed decision about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to continue, filling ourselves up with prescription medications, having surgeries, doing whatever.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not against medical care when it's necessary. I am against the fact that we consume a lot of medical care and we put a lot of toxic chemicals in our body
and our nature.
We don't need to.
Yeah. Yeah, boy, you hit it right on the head. It's called Dr. Gods.
Dr. God.
Yeah. It's like I watched my parents, my mom, first of all, my parents never took any drugs, nothing, their whole life. And then my mom got lung cancer. And then it was, going to the doctor, and it's like, whatever you say, and I'm just like, but mom, like, what, do you know what's going to happen? I mean, it was crazy. And I recall, if I may just share this one moment of time with her, was when I came home when I was on the road playing music, and I came home, and I had this feeling. It's like, drove all the way home, walked through the door. As I walked in, I looked down and I saw my mom's feet swollen. And I go, Mom, that's edema. I like, you need, I mean, at the time I was studying with my naturopathic doctor. Um, and I'm like, oh no. When she's like, oh, I have an appointment on Monday. I'm like, it is Saturday or Sunday, you know, it's like, we need to go now, you know? So sure enough, we took her in there, and they basically just checked her in, you know what I mean? It was like, okay. And I realized that my mom, like, was not empowered. So everybody was making decisions for her, and she was just like, oh, okay, if I need to, I'll do that, you know, kind of a thing. And the one of the nurses came in, and they were prepping her to take her somewhere, and I go, I'm sorry, what's going on here? Like, where's my mom going? And he said, well, we have, pulls out the sheet. He goes, well, we're going to take her down to get an x-ray and MRI. Da, 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 da. And I go, why? And he goes, because it says here they want to see if she has cancer in the brain. And I went, my mom has lung cancer, and it doesn't matter if it's like, why? And then the guy looks at me and he goes, she doesn't really need it, but don't say anything that I said this, you know? And I go, yeah. And what I figured in that moment was they were trying to make as much money as they could off the insurance before she died. Right. And we're talking, she was less than 48 hours towards death here. Wow. Right. And you could tell it. And I thought, in the moment while we're going down the elevator and she's sitting in the wheelchair, and I go, Mom, I go, do you know what we're doing here? And she's like, no, you know, I'm like, oh. And I go, well, they're doing da, 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 da. And I looked at her, I go, do you want to do that? And she said, do I need to? And I was like, here's the moment where I get to empower my mother. And I said, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want to go downstairs and get poked, prodded, you know, have this other stuff run through you and all that stuff? And she looked at me and she said, no, I don't want to. I go, there's your answer. We're going to go back upstairs, you know? And that moment for me was like, she made the decision. She said no, you know, and it was informed, you know? And then of course she went back upstairs, and literally within 24 hours, she passed away.
Wow.
And there was a part of me was so angry.
Yes.
That they were willing to use this woman just to get that last bit of cash like out of her insurance.
To torture people, you know. I went through it with my dad, the same thing. There's a book called Being Mortal. Got it right here. I'm trying to think of the author's name. Atul Gawande, I guess but it's a great book. And it's about how we can empower people at end of life to make the decisions, and we need to have these conversations about, you know, what is quality of life to this individual. You know, here's a statistic you've probably heard, but 75% of the medical expenses that Medicare and Medicaid pays for its members are run up in the last year of that person's life.
I can believe it.
Wow.
So that's, you know, we hit something like your mom did. And that's where, in Western medicine, okay, let's slip the dogs of war, man. We're going to run all these tests. We're going to do these surgeries. We're going to do, you know, all these radiation, chemo, whatever it is. And there's not a lot of thought about what's this individual's quality of life.
Yeah.
A lot of times the so-called cure is worse than the illness, the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
But
totally.
You have to be, or we have to be able to do what you did for your mom. You know, we have to take control and step in. And if you know a senior, or you're related, you know, your parents are still around, or whatever it is, just realize that they really need your help to mediate that process. As a lawyer, I was a mediator, and I did a lot of work in medical malpractice and things like that. But there was an organization called the Coalition for Medical Decision Making.
Okay.
And it was really geared towards people that were at end of life kinds of decisions. And I went in and mediated these situations amongst the stakeholders of an individual's end of life experience. And it was pretty amazing. I mean,
Wow.
everything from, don't do anything because I don't want to spend any money. they're going to die anyway. To, it wasn't about caring for the person. It was just selfish. Or it was like, do anything you can or whatever. But almost every time, not every time, but in a majority of the cases that I was involved in, the actual patient, the person that was being discussed, the persons whose end of life experience it was kind of left out of the conversation. It was the kids and other people talking about,
I'm right here.
unplug mom, don't unplug, whatever,
Did you ask me, maybe?
Well, they're
Yeah.
the sick and the elderly are the weakest, are most often the weakest person in the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people need to know, especially the younger people, it's like, yeah, you may not be in that reality right now, but you know what? You're going to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you do now.
And people in my parents' generation, your mom's generation, and again, nothing is 100%, but there's a lot in that generation, a lot of folks that are deferential towards doctors.
Mhm.
They don't question that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, for example, you can see the sign back here, but with our therapy tubs, I've created what's called medical hydrotherapy, and a lot of people have never experienced this. And I went through this process as a lawyer. I'm sitting there going, what do you hear at the end of every pharmaceutical commercial, right? They give you all the negative stuff that can happen to you.
Right.
And then, oh, by the way, it might help you with this. And then ask
But
your
you'll-
doctor if,
But you'll projectile vomit.
right? Ask your doctor, right?
But you won't have any
And they're doing that for a reason, right? And so there's a medical ethical standard that if I'm a doctor and I'm going to prescribe a therapy and the patient asks for a different therapy and I don't have an evidence-based reason to not do that other therapy, well, okay, fine, we'll do that, right? I was going to use this, but we'll do that, right? And
Yeah.
it really is kind of a Russian roulette sort of thing. And I got to thinking, what would happen if my customers who were purchasing the walk-in tubs with the medical hydrotherapy asked their doctor for a prescription? So the first one I ever had was just the other day. For 20 years, every single doctor, I'd give them a little card to take in and say, I'm having this put in my home. Here's what it does. Will you prescribe it for me? And they go, well, sure, of course. That's medically appropriate for you. Yeah, sure. They'll prescribe it. If we didn't ask them, we didn't put the card in front of their face and have them read it, they don't even know what it is. They wouldn't.
That's awesome.
And it is, and you can't blame doctors, for everything. And unfortunately, the idea of prescribing pharmaceuticals has been a Russian roulette kind of thing up to this point. We're finally getting to the point that there's a test called the pharmacogenetic test. That very simple, but what you get back is a description of how you genetically respond to these different pharmaceuticals. And
awesome.
This is something you can give to, that's what killed my mom. We didn't know this. My mom falls, hurts her hip, goes into the emergency room. She's in pain. Would you like something for your pain, honey? Yeah. So they give her one of these opioid-based pain medications. She was a rapid metabolizer. Boom. Gave her a stroke, just like that. Well, 60% of her cognitive. But if we'd have had that information, doctor would have been able to, whoops, we need to use something different.
Right. Instead of using there as a test pancake. What was that? What's that test again?
Oh, pharmacogenetic test.
That is so cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It should be, you can Google that. I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a Dr. Oz fan or not. I don't care one way or the other, but
Yeah.
Dr. Oz did a show on it probably 4 or 5 years ago. But it's becoming more and more popular. And I think most physicians out there are aware of it. Some of them are very supportive, and some of them, why bother? I just think you need to ask for it. I think Medicare will pay for it, and I'm pretty sure that Medicaid will. But it's called the black box on these pharmaceutical labels when these pharmaceutical companies put a drug out and it's approved, and that black box has the information that explains how different people with different metabolisms interact with that chemical. and it just, the information is there.
It's
We just
huge.
test
That's
to be able to tie
huge.
things together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a drag when you're the guinea pig, like your mom didn't come around with that.
Yep.
It's like, whoops,
Well, that didn't work.
nope.
Well, if you think about it, that's kind of what's going on when they say, well, let's try this regimen, and we'll check in a few days. Let's see, if you have these kinds of reactions, let me know. I mean, it's kind of trial and error.
Yeah.
And that part historically is not the doctor's fault. I mean, we haven't really had other tools,
Yeah.
but now they're beginning to evolve and
Which
come
is
into
great.
place.
Yeah, you mentioned about the opioids, and I mean it's a huge epidemic. But I've got plenty of pain. I've had back surgery and knee surgery, and I've got chronic regional pain syndrome. I think that's what it's called in my hands, and pain management, of course, wants to give me opioids, but I've tried them before. They don't do anything for me. So they're all like, "Why aren't you taking these?"
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, and you had to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, I had to figure that out. I had to be aware of what was going on, with myself, and all. Glenda has to go. Glenda has to go.
I have to go. Thank you so much, you guys. It was
Yeah.
George, really nice to meet you, and
Nice to meet
lovely that you're doing that. I'm really inspired by it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm certainly going to check your music out. I'll go.
Glenda Benevides.
just
.com.
Google me. I'm there. I'm everywhere.
The links will be in the
Google me.
description.
Great.
Everybody's links will be in the description, so people can find it nice and easy.
Awesome.
So
Nice.
Well, lovely to meet you too, Bill.
it was lovely to meet
And
you too.
thank you for having me on the show. And you guys are
Thanks
rocking.
for filling in so last minute.
No worries.
Yeah, I was like, this is not who I was expecting.
I know. It's like, how's that gonna work?
Well, it never is who you're expecting. Almost never.
Yeah,
Well,
the
I'm
universe
a Bob
says
Proctor
otherwise.
fan. I'm a Bob Proctor fan, so
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Very good.
we have lots of commonality.
Yep. Yep. Energy. It's all energy, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank
For
you,
sure.
everybody.
Thank you.
All right. It's meeting.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Well, it's just the two of us. Oh, your picture size changed. Your picture got bigger.
Mine's
Oops. Hold on.
I should probably go too.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's getting there. I've had a long day myself. But yeah, so Bentley baths and what was the other
being young
at any age. There we go. I've got it in the yeah, you sent it in the description of the thing. And
that's
there it is.
a radio show that I had, and I'm converting it into a podcast. But there are
Awesome.
23 episodes up there, and we just talk about these kind of things. It's I bring experts in. It's fun, and I'm anxious to get that fired up and going again.
Yeah, it's doing a podcast can be a lot of fun. I enjoy meeting random people and getting interesting conversations going. It can be strange the directions that things take. Like who would have thought that we would have been talking about whorehouses?
Me. I always go. That's my fallback position. I always go.
Okay.
Well, I thought that was you told me that people just kind of appear and the show just goes where it goes. And,
Yep.
And I was thinking there for a while. I mean, musician but you were right. It just kind of falls together and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no explanation for it. It's random and who gets paired up with whom and we had the original guest you were going to be with. He's a writer and in horror and does horror writing and stuff, but he had to back out because of a family commitment. and so I had to ask Mickey Mickelson, a publicist, and if he had anybody who could fill in at the last minute. And he's like, "Okay, how about Glenda?" It's like,
Well,
and
she was
so
good.
yeah,
No?
but I've only done one episode where I purposefully looked for a matching guest, and it was I had a lot of time to find somebody, and the person was a political type, and so we got another political type, and we had a discussion about politics that just went on and on. It was really interesting.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, but
That may go deeper, but it also might go.
yeah,
It could go sideways
yeah. I
too.
figured I'd take a chance though for once on it, and do it that way. But yeah, I've had some weird pairings, and some are just too perfect for words. And had one where two Richards were scheduled to be on the same night.
Oh,
It was just like different last names, but the same
Richard
first name. And
would be like thing one and thing two.
pretty much,
Richard
pretty
one and
much.
Richard two. Oh, geez. Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thanks for
yeah,
inviting.
it was a lot of fun.
And you'll send or I guess that's what the
I'll
Facebook event thing was.
Yeah,
That's where we can see.
yeah. I will send you once I get everything posted. I'll send you all the links, and Glenda too, and I've got people posting about it on Facebook, and um, all over the place. So yeah, I belong to a networking group that does that kind of thing, and so yeah, so there's like a dozen people out posting it on different Facebook groups about that the show's ready, and all that. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it's pretty good, and
I liked it. It's cool.
great. I'm glad you enjoyed
All
it.
righty. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the
Well,
invite.
my pleasure. Any final words for the audience before you go?
Oh, I didn't know we.
We're still on.
Okay. Oh, well, hell, I've got some really wordy words I want to. No, I just think this is great. I think the information is hopefully useful,
Yeah.
and I just encourage people to look around, ask. Just educate yourself.
Yeah.
Reach out to me. I'll be happy to guide you. I mean, this idea of taking a proactive stance on our longevity and our quality of life. 30 days. 30 days you can have this roadmap laid out, and
Yep.
and it will just help guide you through your decisions that you make, and how you exercise, what you eat, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be in fact, it's the opposite of complicated. The idea is to simplify it.
Yeah.
But the results can be pretty significant.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure. For sure. We can all live better lives. We may not live longer, but we can certainly all have a better quality of life. And
yep, and we don't get to choose when we leave.
Nope.
Who knows? And I always say, like with my dad, he had his date of birth, right, and that's what's on his tombstone. And that in no way sums up the meaning and quality of his life. It's all about the dash. It's all about all of those days between those two, and we just don't know. We don't know when the second one's coming. So I better live for today. That's why my first book is Thrive Now: How to Die Young at an Old Age. And now I'm changing that to Thrive Now: How to Grow Young to an Old Age. I think that's a little kinder and gentler than die young at an old age, but it's a play on words.
Sure.
But it really is something that as individuals we can influence, and we can grow young, and we can grow young to an old age.
So much of it has to do with attitude and getting involved in the people and things around you.
Exactly.
Like playing music badly.
Exactly. Thank you. That's sticking with that. But the big buckets are eat right. That's where I put not just nutrition, but pharmaceuticals, water, whatever I'm exposing my body to. Exercise is what I'm doing to keep my body healthy and vibrant. And it doesn't mean lifting weights and being Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's just understanding how our body works.
Yeah.
And that when a doctor tells you to exercise, they're really telling you to move,
Right.
move, walk, do anything so you stimulate your lymphatic system,
Yeah.
avoid injury. See this? I mean, here I am. They call me the fall guy. I mean, falls are epidemic. And when we
Yeah.
damage this biological vehicle, we can't always just slap another fender on
Yeah.
like a car or whatever.
Right.
We have to heal it.
Yep. You didn't fall in a tub,
And
did you?
figuring out how to minimize those injuries is really important.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
important.
I'm a bit I can be a bit accident prone myself. Like I said, I've had a back fusion, which honestly was one of the best decisions I'd made. I put it off and did research and found a good doctor and put it off some more, and we tried some alternative stuff, and then finally I'm like, okay, I've had it. That's enough.
Yeah.
And I had the surgery, and I I can't tell you how much better I feel now than I did before. And it's been like almost 3 years now since I had the fusion. And
Wow.
yeah, but it's not the same for everybody. I've known plenty of people who've had horrible experiences with back fusions. And
Well, again, it is a bit of a crapshoot,
it
and
can
again,
be.
these are called iatrogenic
Hmm.
illnesses or conditions. And an iatrogenic illness or condition is any injury or disease or harm that is caused by medical care
Mm.
or therapy. So that's where adverse drug
Right.
reactions live. That's where infections in the hospital live. That's misdiagnosis, whatever. Leaving a
Yeah.
sponge in anything that can have a negative impact and causes disease and illness and injury is iatrogenic. And we have more people dying from iatrogenic conditions
Yeah.
than anything else.
Yeah.
You can add them all together. It's really is the number one cause of death according to the AMA.
Yeah.
And what does that say? That says try not to need medical care.
Right.
Try not to need invade like what you did.
Hmm.
You went through a process of evaluating what are my
Yeah.
options before I get cut on. And you made the right decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to take that risk. But we want, again, I just think we need to be informed about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
I went to a situation where I was having kidney stones
Ooh.
and very painful. And the urologist said, I want to go in and put a stent in and do this and that. And, it'll be a day surgery and, you'll be down for a day, but, you'll be back up in 2 days and, no big deal. And I thought, well, let me look at this. So I started doing research. And I found out that 80% of the people that had that procedure had an adverse reaction. 80% of
Wow.
them had infection with the stents. 80% of them were down for a week or more. And of the people who did not have that procedure, 80% passed the stones naturally.
Yeah.
And so I went back into him. I said, "Look, doc, this is what I found out. I want to try to pass this stone naturally. What's your recommendation?" And he said, "Drink a lot of beer." And I went, "Okay, I'm your guy." you know, and 2 days later, I passed the stone, no problem. I didn't feel a thing. No,
Nice.
I'm kidding. But we sometimes have to experiment a little bit with
Mhm.
ourselves, as long as we're not putting ourselves in further jeopardy.
Right.
And for example, he said your kidneys are starting to get pretty unhappy. Meaning, you don't have a long time to do this, but try it, and see if it works for a few. And I passed it. So if I hadn't have passed it, I may have had to go through the procedure anyway. But which is what you did with your
Yeah.
back. It ended up being the right thing. So
Yep.
we do our
We
best.
do. And so yeah, so education is it's like I used to sell cars, and I know a lot about a lot of cars and everything, but an educated consumer can go into a car dealership and run circles around a given salesperson,
Yep.
because the salesperson has to know about all the cars. The consumer only has to know about the car they want. And it's similar with medical. You know, it's like you're the only person who really knows what's going on with your body. And you know, the doctor knows a lot about a lot of things, but he has to know a lot about a lot of things. And so he's not going to know as much about you as you do. So you need to educate yourself.
They know virtually nothing about the individual patient. You know,
Right.
they don't have time. I mean, they got 10
Yeah.
minutes per patient, you know, and
Yep.
for exams, we're just, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. And again, not all of that's doctors' fault. So, I
Right.
mean, it's got a lot to do with how the insurance system is put
Mhm.
together and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it's just the nature of things,
yeah,
you know.
but
But
doesn't mean we can't change it, but we have to be active
mhm.
and, you know, doing things to create change, and it
Yeah.
starts with us individually.
Yep.
You know, change it for yourself,
And it's
and then you may be able to change it for somebody else.
and it's not
And
difficult to
the
do.
other two buckets I wanted to touch that are part of that
Uh-huh.
thrive now, growing young to an old age, stress reduction, and then the always be growing and evolve piece. That's kind
Yeah.
of what we were talking
Yep.
about with Glenda about,
Mhm.
you know, be contributing, you know, be a lifelong learner, and then anything you can do to reduce the stress that we're exposed to today is huge.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell this story. When I was a kid, I got in trouble. I was raised in the 50s, and I got in trouble, and my mom would be yelling out the front door down the street, you know, George, come in the house, get inside. It's time for dinner. It's time for bed. Get in the house, you know, and that's why I got in trouble. And now I yell at my kids, get out of the house, get off your phone, get outside, go into nature. You know, it's just the opposite. You know, so we have all this stress and stimulation, and we're not really necessarily always
I used
getting
I
hurt.
used to do an audiobook show, and I would pick out books that were like 100 years plus old,
Oh,
and because then I didn't have to worry about like trademarks or copyrights or anything like that. And in one of these books that was written back in the late 1800s, the it was a travel log, and the guy was traveling around the world with his wife and their son, and they got to Australia, and he was talking about how the parents were so distraught that their children were never at home. They were always outside recreating. They never enjoyed the insides of their homes, and it's like, it made me laugh because
we have a
that's what people
fireplace.
want the kids to get out.
It's warm in here.
Yep.
We don't have running water, but yeah, no,
Yep.
absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely.
But
Well, it's been
it
fun.
has
I
been,
appreciate it,
and
and let me know if I can ever do anything for
yeah.
you. I'd be happy to help any way I
Hey,
can.
anytime you want to come back on, that's fine with me.
Okay,
Cool.
all right. Keep that in
Yep.
mind.
Have yourself a great rest of your evening, and I will say goodbye to the people and run the ending credits. So
All
be
righty.
safe and remember to wash your hands.
Amen.
And stay tuned for the
Ciao.
ending credits. Good night, George. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd like to thank my beloved Ed McMahon, Rudy Corlew, and my special guests, George Bentley and Glenda Benevides. Remember, the links will be in the description. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. That's the production company, and you can support us that way. Don't miss YWL Online. That show usually comes up on Tuesdays and Saturdays, but there's always new episodes coming around. Tune in next time for Russell Van and Amy Romine. It's going to be an interesting show. Please like, comment, and share to stay informed. You know, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and find us more viewers or listeners. Thank you again for tuning in, and have yourselves a wonderful whenever. Good night.